Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, shall we talk about the Wongbo demonstrations? And in addition to that, we'll look at what is going on as far as the energy ministry is concerned, or the power ministry is concerned, where we are told of luxury Chryslers that have been bought. I've got the full audit report here, which we'll interrogate. Thank you very much, gentlemen. On that note, I'd like to start first with Abdul Malik Okubaku Jr. Yes, people are taking on a minister for suggesting this was just a walk in the park, sort of, or a stroll in the park, sort of. And others are saying, let's ignore him and rather look at the president, who has responded very positively. He is the man in charge, and he says, I see this rather as something that spurs me on to resolve the problem. Was the demonstration justified? Should the NPP not be proffering solutions rather than hitting the streets?
Well, proffering solutions to a problem and demonstrating are not mutually exclusive. You could decide to do both at the same time or at different times. The principle is clear. The national constitution has provided space for people to exercise their rights to movement, assembly, and demonstrations. So that principle is non-negotiable, and there's no need at all for anybody to raise that challenge to any party or any group of persons deciding or opting to mount a demonstration. I think it's needless. And in any case, we have a history of political parties and non-state actors organizing demonstrations to express their concerns or to pursue certain objectives. So I think we've actually gone beyond that stage. I was a bit intrigued when I heard people, particularly people in government, raising that issue about why aren't you bringing alternatives? Why are you going on demonstration? If you finish demonstration, what next? I was intrigued by it. It's needless. So it's a non-issue. The laws of the land permit that. And so they've done it. In the process, they made speeches at the end of the demonstration, outlined their vision.
But the question some ask is, hitting the streets will not change the policy in Kumasi South Hospital, where patients are being asked to pay electricity fees. I'm sure you have heard that. It will not bring back the people who are losing their jobs in the hundreds because of the Dumsor. It will not change the psychological effect it is having on people that the psychologists are telling us about. Neither is it, going to get industries that are folding up back to work.
The last time I checked, none of the organizers of the demonstration indicated that the demonstration was meant to bring about immediate results in all these areas that you have suggested. You just referred to the president's reaction, where he says it's like a wake-up call. So demonstrations have certain effects. They don't bring about immediate solutions. They galvanize a certain critical mass of people along a certain line. If it's ineptitude of a particular regime you are trying to target, that could be clear to the people. They may decide later on what to do with it. If it's the government that is in a slumber, the government may decide to wake up because it gives it signals that, look here, a lot of people are worried. Okay, so they have their own levels of effects. As to the final solution, nobody has ever suggested. Look, let me give you a classic one. For instance, 1995, the Kumi Preko. The main thing that triggered the demo was the VAT that they were introducing.
Right.
There were other issues, but the main thing was the VAT. What happened? VAT was withdrawn in its original package, reintroduced 3 years later without much protest. So you can see that, yes, VAT was withdrawn then, but there was no final solution to the tax system that the system wanted to cure, the mischief that it wanted to cure. It came back 3 years later after parliamentary deliberation and all the rest. There are many demonstrations that are not done because you want immediate solutions. One is to protest at ineptitude, whether perceived or real, of a system. Two is to ginger the system itself to wake up. In any case, if the framers of the Constitution did not think that it was necessary, I don't think it would be put there. And they didn't put it there thinking that the very moment you demonstrated, then there will be a solution. That thing is a needless way of putting it. It's a wrong-headed way of putting the issue. So I think we should put it aside. The question of alternatives, which is embedded in the kind of question you were posing, not that you believed in it aside, but it's necessary to pose it for us to discuss. If you check all the political parties, they have manifestos. They've outlined what they will do relative to the energy sector. If you go to the budget, the parliamentary debate, when budgets are presented and issues on energy and the rest are there, all the parties that have representation in parliament debate it, argue their cases out, point out areas that they think the budget has limitations or it has imperfections, and they propose what they intend doing. They hold press conferences and make statements and propose that every day there's a litany of alternatives being proposed out there by various actors in the political game. Every single day. The government may choose to listen or not. That's its own right. So really, I think that what is important is that, look, people have gone out there and expressed their concerns. They've expressed what they want done. The president, fortunately, has heard what they said. He said, look here, this is a wake-up call. Unlike those who are, being sarcastic. The power minister says sarcasm laced with arrogance, you see, which doesn't help even his own government. It is not as if it's the first time people in government have
People are really angry about that comment.
Yes, yeah, but as I'm being fair, that it's not the first time I've heard people in government doing so. Even under the NPP administration, there were 2 or 3 such sarcastic retorts relative to some of the demonstrations that opposition parties held. That's a fact. It's a certain subculture of arrogance embedded in our political leadership, okay? But when the president himself has acknowledged that, look, this is an event that shows that we have a challenge and I'm prepared to seize the opportunity to resolve it, well, I would grade that one higher than what the power minister, who I thought was going to offer us some very serious prescriptions to deal with this matter. He's come back singing the same old discontent tunes, and that's unfortunate.
Well, he's giving himself 1 year and says that if he's unable to resolve it, he would put his job on the line.
He needs public support. He needs public understanding. But if he communicates this way, he creates a distortion.
What I hear many people say is that we cannot wait for a year, so he should rather be thinking of other measures. Well, I'll come to John. He also has some issues already about whether exactly what did the president say that we are referring to, but we'll take care of that. Now, let's quickly hear Nanado, who led Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, who is the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party. Let's hear what he said when he led the demonstration and to its end.
That is our president.
The president has vowed not to listen to the plight of the people, but the people will listen to us.
The battle is the law, and the battle continues to be that of the law. And there we put our trust in the Almighty.
The law should save our country. The president should listen to the people and change his governing style.
All right, so for those of you who have the benefit of the television, you saw Nanado, vice presidential candidate, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, by him, Alan Tremanting. You saw Kwabneje Japong, who is the general secretary, Frank Davis, and a lot of other people. And the people were out there in their hundreds. The question some are asking, Mr. Kwarteng, is doing a demonstration or a protest against Dumsor at a time when government has outlined measures to resolve the problem. What exactly are you looking at? Because government has said, I'm doing A, I'm doing B, I'm bringing power badges as a way of dealing with the issue as an emergency situation and so on and so forth. So what's the point?
Well, what exactly were we looking for? What we're looking for, one of the things we're looking for is what we've got. Pushing the president to now see the urgency of the problem. It was one of the reasons we organized the demonstration. But before I do that, something to be kind of me, I was part of the demonstration that we congratulate the police. They were fantastic that day. But
they had attempted to stop you by an expert.
I'll respond to that briefly. But the regional police commander particularly was superb. And we're grateful to the police for the professional manner in which they supported the exercise that day. As for the root matter, I think it was a confusion that came from the court order. In type, I think it was a typographical error, and we saw UTC instead of TUC. And before, it was the evening before the demonstration day that the police rushed back to correct it. But by then, the publicity was out. So when people headed in that direction, it was difficult to stop them. That is how come. But even that, it was so peaceful. Where we so conducted ourselves, led by our able flag bearer Nana Akufo-Addo himself, and it went very well. So we are grateful to the police. The second point is that I'll respond briefly to this suggestion about alternatives. You see, stopping Dumsor is not rocket science. During the Christmas, Dumsor stopped. We know the solutions. When we were playing AFCON, the finals, Dumsor stopped. So let nobody pretend that solution to Dumsor is some complicated matter that the NDC is incapable of, and that is the NPP that should provide the solution. The reason, when I mentioned this point, the response I got the other time in Parliament was that, during the Christmas, most of the companies were not operating. I tried to find out many of our major companies operated during the Christmas. They said their power consumption didn't go down, and therefore, that one too is untrue. The question is, what is it that government did during the Christmas that they are not willing to do now? It is the money. When all the money is going to corruption and other things, where are you going to get money to procure crude oil, to fix your generators, and to provide us with power? So let's not pretend the alternative is there. We all know it. Government must make savings from the waste, invest the savings in the procurement of crude oil and fuel, and also fix some of the repair issues we have with the generators. That is the alternative, and I don't think this resort to provide alternatives is a credible point at all. In any event, if you take power, they give you all the perks, they give you all the privileges as the president and government that solve our problems, and you are letting us down. People are complaining. Offer us some hope that solutions will come, and stop saying that the opposition must now come and solve the problem for you. You should solve the problems yourself. Now, Al Jazeera put the number of demonstrators at 500,000. I think it was far more than that, but I don't think the numbers is anything we should be.
So the media coverage and stuff is what you refer to as the response that you are getting, which you are excited about?
First, it brings, as I said, it brings to bear on everybody's mind, at least those who probably are sleeping, the urgency of this problem. And I think it was good. I'm happy the president himself acknowledges that it's energized him, and hopefully we need him to make use of that energy and solve the problem. Now, why did so many people, and hopefully it's something government should take note of, why did so many people decide to join the demonstration? For two reasons, briefly. One, everybody can feel the pinch. The hairdresser, the ice cream case, everybody now feels the pinch of the bad outcome of the government's policies on energy provision. And therefore, they came out to demonstrate. As we moved along, many just came and joined us. But I also think there were many who came there just to see Nana Addo. As we walked by, there were people who said, I've heard that Nana will be part of this demonstration. I want to see him. And once you join, and Nana started with us at the Obra spot, and he walked all the way to the Hearts Park. So if you came to see the man, you are there with him. He himself is walking, energetic. It's very unlikely that you would abandon the demonstration. It's the reason I think the numbers joined and followed the demonstration with the flag bearer to the House Park. I take this opportunity to express the party's gratitude to all those who joined to make this emphatic statement to government that we are sick and tired of this Dumsor. The waste must stop. The money must be put in solving the problem. Now, just a quick one on the solutions. And I come back to you, John. Let's not kid ourselves. This Dumsor is not just about power outages and people complaining, and then that's it. We have just this morning discussed the economic difficulties we're having. Part of the problem is not...
Sorry, but you seem to be setting your own questions, really. My question to you was, why go on the demonstration after government had outlined an elaborate program to stop or resolve the crisis?
What is that elaborate program? What is that elaborate program, Samson? So far, the only thing that government has done that it calls emergency response to the situation is the engagement of this Turkish company, Kazan, this Kazan company, to provide electricity. Let's understand this. The information we have is that this company, we are not acquiring the badges. It's a contract with the company to supply us with power. They have decided to do that by using the badges. Now, it is the only extraordinary, if you like, thing government has done, which government also hopes that would deal with the problem. There are a few questions, because this in itself highlights the problems of our energy sector and why this is not a sustainable solution. You see, they are giving us power. Who will offtake the power? ECG. It's ECG that would, if you like, buy the power from them, sell to consumers, and collect back the money, and we use it to pay for the money we are putting into this emergency measure. You know, it's not ECG that is underwriting it. It's GMPC. Now, those are the clumsy arrangements we are beginning to have in government policy.
What's the problem with that?
The problem with that is that if ECG is not able to collect the light bills, whatever, and therefore we have difficulty paying, it is the GMPC that would pay. And of course, they are going to use the allocation that has been assigned them in the Petroleum Revenue Management Act to do that. We should begin to look at that as a policy and see whether that is the way to go. But, well, when you are in this darkness and everybody is crying, perhaps you think less about breaking laws or not breaking laws. But the question I'm asking then is, for how long is this going to happen? That because ECG, because of its bad books, because of the way we have mismanaged ECG, and because of its credit unworthiness, we are no more able to use the fulcrum of our energy sector to procure this particular facility and to distribute. We are now dodging it. So what? We have given up on ECG? And that tells you that so long as we give up on ECG, or so long as we do not take clear steps to fix ECG, those who are generating know that it's this ECG that must offtake the power, that must buy the power and sell it to consumers. If they can't trust ECG, they will not come and invest, which is one of the problems of the energy sector. So if you talk about government interventions, this thing started not today. It's been with us for more than 2 years now. We have received promises upon promises. It is the same measures we are seeing. The only addition is this emergency thing, which, as I have pointed, appears not to be a sustainable response to the problem we have on our hands.
But which you have not given any alternative. You would have done the same thing.
Right here on this program, I have indicated that during Christmas we had power. So what alternative are you looking for?
Okay.
What was it?
We have been in such a near this situation before.
You remember the solutions?
And the MPP also brought in some, plants. which were described as toy machines.
Well, we bought plants. You know what they are trying to do with those plants now? They are going to resell them to Liberia. Those plants we bought.
It's not true.
Well, what is not true?
Well,
please, but let me land on this. So, what are you going to do with those plants?
You've made a statement.
Okay, but to land on this, to summarize all the points, I don't think this government has any clear strategies that would deal with this. It would appear to me that government is only waiting for the appropriate time, whether they will borrow the money or not, or whatever they will do, they raise some money to do the things that they can't do now because there's no money. That is what I see, and that is not good enough. It is the reason we are still pressing government for a credible response to this difficult situation. So let's not talk about alternatives, because the alternative is cutting the waste and putting the money into power generation.
Okay,
that's the alternative.
Hold on at this point. We haven't gone even any deeper into this discussion yet. Now, let me go to let you have what the president has been saying. I'm hoping that I can hear exactly what he had to say about this. And then I'll ask John to also tell us, because this is something that he is directly, involved in. Let's hear President John Mahama.
Obiaso a mobile phone na Ghana e bro nipa e Ghana I say anka e mobile phone na say abofra ya wo na ne ya ono so mobile phone bi e kasa e mobile, because Ghana was 27 million mobile phone lines. Now population here say 25 and 2 million bro, so 25 mpanka 25 and I say abofra ya wo na nempo ono so kuta mobile phone ni bi na anaju bia ye nyina ye plug mobile phone ye charge when nyina ewe kanea enti was abaya bebe bia was say sena yesi eyusu iram kanea no kono was yedi bi ka ho.
Okay, I was expecting to hear also that part where he spoke about the fact that the demonstration encourages him or energizes him to even do more to solve this particular problem. But in respect of the aspect of the mobile phones, there are those who have already given expert views that we should relegate that to the dustbin, because it's not accurate. There's a gentleman, Theo Echampong, who is written extensively about it and suggested that the president doesn't know what he's talking about. John, there are those who say, look, this is an obligation that you have. What the president said suggests an admission of failure or incompetence on the part of the government in resolving this problem.
What exactly did the president say? And that's why I was trying to point you to that. There's a lot of misrepresentation going on in the system. And sometimes I think that is out of deliberate mischief. And the flag bearer himself is doing that. I just listened to him that the president says Ethiopia. The president has never said that. And I thought that as somebody who is angling to be president, he hasn't said that. He hasn't said that. It's straightforward. The president hasn't said that. I think that
he hasn't said that in relation to the power crisis?
No, he says that the president has said that Ethiopia. And I'm saying that the president has not said that. Two has to do with the power minister. I was with him. Indeed, he gave an elaborate account after the demonstration, and then concluded by saying that on a lighter note is good exercise. Now, in language, once you qualify it, I think that it's proper that we put that in context. The information is being put out there as if the NPP went on demonstration. They called the power minister and he said, oh, they just went on an exercise or a walk. I think that is proper that we put it within context. And sometimes all of us should endeavor to put things accurately. Other than that, when you do that, especially when the flag bearer says that, president says that Ethiopia, he's trying to put the president as a belligerent president, as a president who would not listen to people, and put him in a very, very bad light. And I thought that that was very, very unfortunate. Now, let me come to the main issue. I think that my brother, Kokokati, needs a bit of some explanation. Because first of all, his conclusion is that once you have load shedding, it's out of mismanagement, you are wasting resources, you are not cutting waste. Under your regime, we had load shedding for 2 years. So would it be because of waste, because of mismanagement, because of corruption? You see, this is a major problem. He has just said so when I'm putting it to him. I mean, it's between...
and then this is said so. I can prove it.
Can I comment?
About mismanagement, corruption, and things. That's
Senior comrade. Can I advance?
I'm sorry.
Can I advance?
I'm sorry.
Is it something? Well, the MPP may decide to go on demonstration or not, but the president has admitted consistently that it's a major problem that he's concerned, and that the demonstration alone couldn't have been a wake-up call to the president. That is a fact, and there's no doubt about that. If not for anything, all of us are affected. Even if you have a generator, first of all, the cost of fuel. 2, you have relations. 3, you want to satisfy the people because you are governing. So everybody is concerned about the magnitude of this problem. And I have tried as much as I can to move away from the politics of it, because we are drifting into a political banter where it's now an issue between the MPP and the NDC. But this is a national issue.
Well, you choose how you want to deal with it.
And that is why I choose not
in this
to
country,
look
they
at
are
it
watching
from
you. If all you are interested in is to play the blame game and say they also had it, they couldn't solve it. They are watching.
You see, it's important to quickly use some 30 minutes and look at the history of the challenge that we find.
Use 30 minutes.
30 minutes? That would be too much. No, just to...
You meant to say 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
30 seconds. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
The first problem we had was in 1982. Prior to the Akosombo Dam, we were using thermal plants. Now, when the Akosombo Dam was commissioned around 1966, 1967, our peak demand was 100 megawatts. Available capacity was 600 megawatts. And so we had a redundancy of 500. And even at that time, doctor, some people thought that it was a waste of resources putting up the Akosombo Dam. Fast forward, 1982, we had a problem with that. We did some commissioning of studies just to look at what we can do. 1998, 2000, we had a similar challenge. 2006, 2007, we had a similar challenge. Today, we have the same challenge.
So it's normal.
It's not. It's not. That will be... It means that consistently, we've had some challenges with the power. Earlier on, our main source of generation was the Akosombo Dam. That was the main source. And so if you look at 2008, our peak demand at that time was 1,300 megawatts. Available capacity at that time was about 1,500. And it was because of Akosombo, Pong, and the TAPCO units that we put in place before our government left. Fast forward,
and
today,
retrofitting of the Akosombo and all that.
I said we're dependent on these three. These three. That is what provided us the power. Fast forward, today we have load shedding and we have challenges. Today's peak demand is projected at 2,300. So the magnitude of the problem is not the same. In 2008, the challenge we had to deal with was 1,300. Today we've had to deal with 2,300.
With oil revenue.
The question is, please, can I make my point? The question is, what is the situation today? Because you must continuously improve the system to match demand. We have increased our capacity from about 1,400 to 2,845. So there's been some level of increase in terms of generation. But the truth, and all of us must admit, is that if you look at the post-Akosombo era, where demand is increased by about 2,000%, and then the generation is increased just about 200%, it gives you a huge mismatch. And so for me, if you were to ask me, and advanced countries do this, in the US, in the UK, in most countries, when they have this challenge, the first thing they do is to move away from the politics of it. About you are corrupt, you are incompetent. That would not solve the problem. The question is, why are we having a recurrence of this problem? And what can we do to solve the problem? 1, in the immediate term. 2, medium and long term. When you had a problem, you brought in the diesel generators. They sort of reduced the problem. It didn't solve it because the gap was bigger than what we brought in. But our lesson is that you cannot depend on diesel. It just doesn't make economic sense.
These ones will depend on what?
These ones depend on heavy fuel, which is even cheaper than light crude.
So you can depend on it.
Yes, but you cannot depend on diesel. Because with diesel, you'll be paying about 32 cents per kilowatt hour. With this, you'll be paying around 17. So you are looking at halving the cost. So that, for me, is how we should do the debate. Yes, as a government, we take the ultimate responsibility. But the politics of trying to castigate people, insinuations and all that, will not solve the problem. After your debate, the minister came to Parliament and briefed parliamentarians, both sides. And both sides are determined to work with the minister to resolve this matter. That is what the people of Ghana want to see. The people of Ghana want to see us, for the first time, whether it happened or not, rise above the petty partisan politics of it and deal with the real issue. It is an issue of fuel. Let's discuss it.
Ghanaians and stop
It is not. You see, people say go and buy light crude. Even if we were to buy all the light crude in this world, the problem will not be solved today. You talked about the football matches. Let me just give you some explanation and you appreciate it. We can choose to run all the units at Akosombo for the next 1 month or 2 months. All of us will have lights. But eventually, Akosombo will collapse. And the magnitude of the problem will be bigger. And so sometimes, based on the situation, you might decide to run the units to give some temporary relief. For instance, if there's a football match, and a lot of people put pressure that Ghanaians, we have passion for football. So even if you can't give us the lights, at least for the 1 hour or 2 hours that we can watch our boys play, especially with this difficult situation, it gives us some relief. If by consensus we decide that we shouldn't do that, fair enough. But the fact that you've run all the units and give, say, 1 hour or 2 hours, doesn't mean you can do that. The question is this sustainable? Can you continuously run that? As I speak, I just checked the data on my phone. BUI is running at 0. BUI is running at 0.
After investing 500 and something million?
No, after investing almost 800 million, doctor, in BUI. Today, as I speak to you, it's running at 0. If we were to run at full capacity, 400 megawatts, it closes the gap. I'm not going to go into the politics of it.
There's no politics. This is not the weather.
People,
it's rain, isn't it?
You know,
is it not there?
We discussed it
yes.
at our own level.
Do your politics. So, when you are done, Dr. Kote is here. So, he helped me to.
That is the challenge.
Put it in a perspective.
Now, beyond this, I think that people want to hear what we intend to arrest the situation.
You spoke about the power plants that were brought in some time ago. Star Online or Star FM, is reporting that these plants have been loaned to Sierra Leone. It is said that they have been shipped there, and that's where they are, and they are there at a cost of $2,500 dollars a piece. How did that happen?
If I may tie that in and deal with the solution moving forward.
Yes.
Now, what we did, one, there was a mines reserve plant that the mining companies bought during the 2006 crisis. Following that, they realized that it was not economically viable to run them on diesel, so they left them. What we did when we came was to take those plants and retrofit them. And today they are running on gas. It just doesn't make economic sense to run any plant on diesel. It just doesn't make economic sense. So what we are doing is that these plants have been idling for some time. And so we are giving about 10 or so to Sierra Leone at a cost. I would check the exact cost. Okay. And then we can use that money to see how we can retrofit the others and put them back into the system. And I think that that is wise. I think that is good. Now, what we want to do immediately is to bring on some of these plants that are down. For instance, Tico is down. If we can bring Tico back and then do the coupling.
No, but finish with those plants for me. You said 10 of them have been rented to Sierra Leone, and we have up to about 50 or 60 that is still left, yes, right? According to what Star FM has counted. So the 50, 60, what are we doing with them?
We would see how we can retrofit them, because as I told you, as for diesel, it's just not an option for now. And if you talk to any good expert, he would advise you that, look, don't run your plants on diesel. In fact, you could be paying as much as 35 cents. You must eventually pass it on to the consumer. And it may just be like buying a generator and putting your diesel in it eventually. And all of us talked about the economic situation. So in an era where...
We are in desperate times.
In an era, we've always had scarce resources. Don't let us put it as if in one regime or the other, money was unlimited.
The power badges,
about regime,
the power badges that you are working at, that Mr. Kwatin referred to, that you are seeking to bring through Kazan, we are being told that they may delay or may not come because the bankers you are relying on to assist you to get them are not willing to support.
I do know that we've made significant progress, and we are determined to bring those badges in. I do know that the banks have done a lot of work, and as of yesterday, my information was that we're virtually concluding everything. You see, one loop that all of us must look at is that we have signed IPPs to about 4,000 megawatts. They seem to be coming the way they ought to be coming. Why is it so?
ECG.
ECG.
Yes.
And so beyond bringing in generation, in the medium term, is also to look at the chain and deal with it in a holistic manner. And that's why we've said that we want to look at ECG. We want to use all the MCCA compact money towards investing in ECG, making it more responsive and more efficient. Because if the off-taker is credible and the off-taker can pay, a lot of IPPs will come into the system. A lot more power will come. VRA wouldn't even come to government to request for money. And we know some of the problems. Time may not permit us to look at the problem. But once you bring about some level of efficiency, some level of responsibility at the demand side and reduce the losses, it's then passed on to the other chains. And so we are looking at it from a holistic point of view. But the challenge with the power sector is that it's not an event. It is not a one-day event. The problems have been cascading and compounding to this level. But we must solve it.
Mr. Kwatin also has an issue
to deal with that.
He has an issue that you have GMPC that is underwriting for these...
power procured
yes.
to be sold by ECG.
ECG is the off-taker. ECG has a PPA with car power. You take and pay. GNPC's duty is to work on the fuel arrangement, because 80% of the cost of generation is attributable to fuel. And that is where GNPC comes in to provide that. So don't worry at all.
Is your contract buying badges? No, please, let me ask this question.
You're not a moderator. Why?
No, I've allowed him. Let him
Thank
ask.
you. Is the contract buying the badges and the fuel, or the contract is buying
Just
power?
The contract is buying the power.
So what's all this about fuel and...
But they are concerned about the fuel. And GNPC's main business, being into fuel, can provide some support and some assistance.
Okay, so that's the answer. You either take it or you are not satisfied with it and you leave it at that. Well, thank you very much for keeping your dials here on Joy 99.7 FM and over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. This is also live here from your Joy News channel. This is Multi-TV, and the show is subsequently available at on the ABN television Sky channel in London and elsewhere in Europe. The show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. Also by MTN, welcome to the new world. Now, let me see what sort of, okay, I'll abandon what I was about to say, that Dr. Akwete will bring to this discussion as well.
Okay.
But Dr. Akwete, this is what some people are saying.
Yes.
This is from Kofi Louis Boeki. He says, please kindly tell the Deputy Minister to stop the references because Ghanaians thought the NDC can solve the problems of Ghanaians and, for that matter, voted them into power. This he sent it from Belgium. Another one, Kofi Nyako, says, tell John Junapo that we are fed up with the stories they have about fixing the problem. They should stop disturbing our ears and just fix the problem because we voted for them to fix the problems and not to explain them for us. Kofi Nyako is sending from Holland. Doc, do you feel the same way that these people feel? They are not in Ghana, but this is how they feel about it, that they are fed up. We are getting too many explanations than being told that the problem has been fixed?
Well, there is a widespread fed-upness, but it's not only with Dumsor. I think the majority of the people are getting fed up about how developmental governance has taken place in the Fourth Republic. It's been a culture of short-termism. We've talked about how the economy, macroeconomic stability, is derailed every 4 years through elections in the Fourth Republic. And we go through this recurrence. So I liked it when Honorable went through the history of the power crisis we've been facing from 1982 to date.
It appears also that people are fed up with that one too, the history.
No, but people shouldn't be fed up because knowledge is what pioneers us forward. And I think what he did clearly shows the persistence of problems. So just like the destabilization of the economy, which is a persistent problem, we do not find solutions to persistent problems. It's like that with our politics. You know, we've been talking a lot about the recurring threat of violence. And it's recurring, just like Dumsor. But we don't solve problems that recur. But those problems are also structural, just because they recur. And what you find is that if we are to look at Dumsor seriously, it is, I think, first of all, it's a late warning that the system can collapse. But it's not isolated from the bigger problems we're facing, whether it has to do with education, health, and many areas, employment and all that. But Dumsor, because we all depend on light, nobody wants to live in darkness or be in darkness and so on, has become a powerful issue that galvanizes. It mobilizes everybody across the divide. I mean, it's not just NDC, MPP thing, although they make it appear like that. But I'd like to believe that there were NDC people who sympathizers and so who were in the demonstration, because Dumsor is affecting everybody. And so the question for me is that, first of all, it's a late warning, but it's a serious warning. And secondly, I think it's an indictment of the failure of short-termism. And that short-termism you can also see in the solutions. As the minister recounted what MPP did and what they are also doing, I kept asking myself, how much have we spent, if you put it together, you know, on these short-term solutions? And does it mean if we needed short-term solutions because we wanted immediate relief, there was no basis to do long-term planning? And he started beautifully when he said, Nkrumah built 600 megawatts at Kosombo at a time that we only needed 100. Foresight, vision, and a plan. So that is how it goes. But we failed since 1982 to look at our needs, energy needs. What is the projection? Even now, as we said, what is the projection? And how do the short-term interventions, which are necessary because people must live, they must work, and so on, dovetailing into a long-term plan that says, at this time, we would have such excess, so we could even start exporting and so on and so forth. And how do we work systematically on it? So for me, it is no longer a partisan issue, but we have a problem of moving from partisan issues to what then becomes an administrative issue. That which you would leave to the civil servants, the private business people to do, where the politicians would say, we have decided, we've made the policy. Let those who would carry it forward go forward with it. And I think the point about the demonstration, which I thought was a very good thing. Demonstrations, by the way, are extremely good in measuring the maturation of our democracy, you know, its strength. In the 60s, in the 70s, I mean, if you look at student demonstrations in the late 60s on education policy and how it was dealt with, and then you go to 70, labor, organized labor, and so on. Then you come to 80s, those who were criticizing structural adjustment policies, what happened to them, and so on. And for us to get to a situation where massive demonstrations are still guided and controlled in a certain way by the police, it's a positive thing. It's not just elections that measures the strength of our democracy, but demonstrations of this kind. And I like the way the president's statement, you couldn't show But he hasn't denied that he made that statement where he said it's a wake-up call.
In fact, I've had several messages coming through.
So he made that
saying
statement,
that
isn't
he did
it?
say that
yes,
it's a wake-up
and it's a
call.
good thing. It's a good response, and I think that indicts the minister, for energy, Dr. Kwabena Donkor.
Power.
Sorry for powers. Thank you. I think it might be a jest, but maybe this is also the lesson we should learn. Cabinet ministers are there for the nation. They don't do party business. Okay, in some jurisdictions, they don't even dabble in the party propaganda talk. So when you have such an important purpose, the president has imposed and reposed a lot of trust, at a very sensitive time. You are the person who should lead the people, assure them, listen to them, try to manage even the frustration and bring action that will relieve. And then, in a very casual way, it becomes like, keep fit and so on. I think no matter how you dress it up, it's bad. So you leave it to the president.
In the messages, Ernest Fianco Yerenchi, Amachi, and Saye Waike are saying that he should be apologizing because
I think he should. I think he should. Flippant as it is, the president had to intervene to save the street. You see, we put too much pressure on our presidents. Our presidents need space to think long term, need space to think fundamentally about the issues that will strengthen not only the economy, the unity of the country, its progress, the welfare of its people. And most times what you see our presidents do is that they have to step in to manage situations that cabinet ministers ought to be managing, or ministers generally. And it's also because the parties have failed to perform those functions effectively. So there are challenges there, but I think all said and done, he's moved the debate forward, and I think it's a good thing. But I thought I should point out that the policy alternative expectation is equally not misplaced, simply because MPP got involved. You see, if it had been all citizens like some of these AFAG and others going on their own, you wouldn't demand policy. Usually you don't demand much. You just may say whatever you like. But once a major party, a formidable force and its leader got involved, we did not only look at the demonstration, which is a good thing, and joining and solidarizing. President Mills did that too, remember, and so on. But we now raise the issue of the policy alternative. And what is the policy alternatives preferred, and so on. And I think it's a legitimate question, because with parties, we would always expect policy alternatives. So this is what I see. I think that both parties in government have not been able to provide the long-term plan, the strategy for getting us out. But the demand and the needs are growing and the expectations are there. And when it happens like this, they've already resolved the issue. The issue is no more partisan. Okay, so it is now important for the two parties and maybe others, as part of the dialogue we have been calling for, to look at, in the long term, with the technocrats assisting them, project our needs and decide on how we are going to meet this. And once that has been done, how much are you going to commit, how much are you going to invest, and so on. It becomes the duty of the technocrats to invest that. Of course, Parliament will hold you accountable that you said this percentage of budget would always be allocated to building the infrastructure that we need. So that the recurrence, the challenge is, how do you prevent the recurrence after this time? And how can we do it such that, irrespective of who is in power, it is a national thing we all need, and therefore its development and management will go on. And that is where I like the idea. I heard the Honorable Minister refer to bipartisanship or something, where, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, our structures for bringing our parties together, and not only, this is not a bipartisan thing on its own, it is also, it's a national thing. Private sector, yesterday, if you listen to Joy FM's, is it Ghana Connectors? There were young people in private business, SMEs, really, really, really under this. Their businesses were going, and there was a man who was sad, and there was a lady in a Yasantua fashion who was thought a lot more should do, and in fact came up with brilliant ideas. And I thought that the minister handled it well and even wanted to take some. But this is the nature of it. So we need to have a situation where we look at how the long-term needs will be met. and how the short term would dovetail into that. And we must do it rapidly, extremely rapidly. This is the time that we would have liked to see MPP clearly with its plans on the table, NDC, and they are being convened or facilitated to come up with this, with other sectors also talking in, because it's a national problem. And I think we've realized that, but how to move forward on this is the question. We are happy to help with that and so on. My final point is this. I think that we shouldn't look at Dumsor, although it's the most pressing issue. And I think I'd like to think it's distracted government from a lot of very important other things it might pursue. Because this is like a very pressing need, expensive to deal with, and the demand and expectations are high. But I think that the short-termism of governing the country and the choices we make, whether constrained by elections, and therefore the parties themselves say, oh, you have only 2 years to govern, and so on and so forth, it's killing us.
Okay, right.
So we need to move away from there and look at it broadly, have more planning, more long-term. NDPC's importance and the civil service and public services importance ought to be put back on the table.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete. Now, Frank Kojo Anderson Jr. says that, he says, this is my best present from you. He says that my best present from you would be to assemble all senior engineers and technocrats at VRA, ECG, Gridco, and all other energy installations, to thoroughly educate the public on what they need, they did to anticipate the energy crisis, what contingency measures or actions were taken, accurate projections of Ghana's energy requirements for the next decade, looking at how properties and businesses are springing up everywhere, etc. Why are large mining companies still connected to the national grid? A tiny percentage of millions of dollars they repatriate annually to foreign countries is enough to develop their own energy plants. Let's stop the politics and get down to solving this nation-wrecking challenge instead of the useless demonstrations. Summon all experts and power sector leaders to parliament for thorough grilling under oath. This is how civilized countries practice their democracy. Well, on that note, let me inform you that on the 25th of February at 8:30 a.m. at the Kofi Annan ICT Center near Parliament House, you are invited to come and listen to such a stakeholder forum. We call it the Power Forum. It's a Power Forum that is being organized by Joy FM, and the theme is the solutions now. We are looking for the solutions. So come to the Kofi Annan ICT Center on the 25th of February. But before you do that, you need to pick up an invite at the front desk of Joy FM. So just come to the front desk of Joy FM and you can pick an invitation and you will be part of that interesting program that you are demanding for. This one from Nana Ansa Obafo says, Samson, as much as I agree, Kobna Donko should apologize. It says can the MPP should also apologize instead of condemning the insults. I'm not getting clearly. You are writing in shorthand in a way that I can't really, share your text message. Musa Abator in Kumasi says, I heard MPP saying it was national demonstration. The fundamental question is it the NPP that has responsibility to organize national demonstration, or did the demonstration add any megawatts to the national grid? President Mahama has taken the full responsibility and he is working hard to fix it. This demo was completely waste of time. Ajiman says, in the first place, it shows the insensitivity of the government when none other than the power minister will insult Ghanaians by describing the demonstration as a mere keep-fit exercise. The solution to the power crisis, which is mainly due to lack of resources, is simple. Number one, minimize the unbridled corruption with impunity. Number two, punish corrupt officials. Number three, set the priorities right, and there will be enough resources to eliminate the Dumsor. Why does the government think corruption is not a major cause of our predicament? It is the case. Is it a case of the pot calling the kettle black? Mensa Intema says, what is the government doing to have a buffer stock since the fall of world market prices of crude oil? Okay, Awali Saku says that having listened to the Deputy Energy Minister recount the history behind the energy crisis in this country, I think it is imperative to mention that the 1982, 1989, and 97 and 2007 power crisis were caused by low levels of water, but the recent one from 2011 was not due to low levels of water until late 2014 when the dam started drying up. The ministry bemoaned the need to depoliticize the matter, yet his submissions are largely driven by partisan propaganda motives. Good morning to you and your discussants. Benjamin in London says, Mr. Jinapo has given us no solution to the Dumsor in his submission. The president and his government have no clue and lack vision and direction. Achu in Enyam says that, or is it Achu Enyam, says, I am scandalized to hear His Excellency John Mahama saying the Dumsor in the country is as a result of the use of mobile phones. Okay, he says we should not follow that trend of thinking at all. Thank you very much. We'll be right back to look at why we are buying luxury vehicles, Lexus and Chryslers. We'll take just a minute or two to just wrap up and find out why we are buying Lexus and Chryslers in the name of expanding electricity, coverage. When right around us, we don't seem to be able to afford a small van to carry prisoners from Sawam to the court. And it took the British to do that for us this week. Why at Maslog, one man can take away 1 million Ghana cedis, and we'll watch when, we need the money.